Nardanam Devaki
Devananam
Krishnam
Vande Jagat
Guru Mukam Karoti Vacha
Vacham Pangum Langiri
Yat
Yat
Krupasamaham Vande Padmanandam Madhavam.
Okay. આપણે 5 જણ છે અત્યારે તો અને દિનેશભાઈ might join a little bit later એટલે અનિલભાઈ તમે you sent that email this morning.
Yes, yes,
I think.
yes.
You want to talk about that before we go forward?
Yeah, it just what I just wanted to say. I wrote it in a. There were a couple of things I may add to that, and that is the idea was this is Dayanandji's. It's from Dayanandji's book, that Values of the Values, and that refers to a Gita verse, and it's about shaucha. It's about cleanliness. You know, this is where it comes in. And it says, yeah, you could, we could clean ourselves externally by taking bath and all those kind of things. But what about the internal purity? How do you internally cure yourself? That means, internally curing means apne rag, dvesh, jatjatna, mada, moha, matsara, all of this they call 6 types of ripus, 6 enemies, in us. So those things are there. So how do you get rid of those kind of things? Now, one of them is the guilt feeling, self-condemnation, and he says any one of these things, if you try to meditate or if you try to sort of concentrate on the spiritual path, they would come in your way because mind will not let you to go towards a higher path that way. So here, this particular thing is self-condemnation. Guilt. Guilt happens because you do something and basically all of us have desire. So desire, and all of us get angry once in a while, or so those 2 things lead us to an action which we really do not want to do, but in the passionate manner we commit that action. So here Dayanandji says that in his childhood, once in a year, he was sort of committed to reciting this mantra, even if he did not know it. 7-8 વર્ષના છોકરાને શું ખબર હોય, પણ he recited that mantra, and that recited that mantra I translated Dayanandji's word in English, and that's what we see. So what we are creating here is that there is a distance between the agent that does something and something that leads to that agent to do these things. So that was the idea about that. Now, what I might, that is all the email is about, and on this thing. What I might add is that, like, we were talking one time, in this past couple of weeks, their presentation of Sarva Priyanand and all those things, Kashmiri Devism came up. So I would add something about that it's as a sideline to it, not to add to anything that we are doing over here, but just there is a Patanjali Yoga Sutra, which is very famous, which everybody knows. There is also a alternate Yoga Sutra, which is called Vijnana Bhairav. And in there are 112 methods, to elevate ourselves, spiritually. And one of the method is to look at what it says is basically, there are a couple of methods, but all of them basically say, you look up your negative emotions. Sometimes your negative emotion can also help you towards that progress, which is a very unique thing. Nobody says that you're negative. We say negative, remove yourself. But here, the negative emotions also could get you to a somewhat of a higher level. And there are specific techniques. But basically, if you can find the anger, the moment that the anger arises, or moment the desire arises, and if you can separate that, you will go far ahead. in your mental evolution. So that's what this thing was about. So I hope, and this is also in, yeah, go ahead, go ahead. There was, you are having something, a question?
રજનીભાઈ કશું કેવું છે તમારે?
પેલા પતાવી દો અનિલભાઈ, મને એમ કે તમે સ્ટોપ આવે એટલે પછી પૂછું છું.
Yeah, what, so this also comes in a મેં જે કોટ કર્યું છે તે મહારાયણ ઉપનિષદમાં આ શ્લોક છે, એટલે it's one of the Vedic method also. That's all I wanted to say.
એટલે મેં વાંચ્યું, તમે લખ્યું ને પેલું આજે બહુ સરસ હતું, પણ તમે આજે કન્ડેમનેશન નું કહ્યું ને, એટલે can you elaborate a little bit with the example, like what we trying to do?
Yeah, self condemnation. Suppose કે મેં કંઈક સપોઝ કે કોઈક મેને ગુસ્સામાં મેં કોઈકને થપ્પડ મારી દીધી. This is I'm just taking an example. બહુ જ ગુસ્સો આવ્યો તે દિવસે, મને એમ થયું કે એણે બહુ જ ખોટું કર્યું છે અને મેં મારા કોઈ નજીકનાને થપ્પડ મારી દીધી. રાતના હું સુવા જાઉં તો મને એમ થાય કે મેં ખોટું કર્યું. I should not have done that thing. એને હું સમજાવી શક્યો હોત ને એ સમજી બી શક્યો હોત, એટલે પણ આ મારી ભૂલ થઈ ગઈ. So that this is the self condemnation. I am condemning myself for the act, and then I am feeling guilty about it at night time. In the morning I did that thing, so this guilt, that guilt, if you do not come out of this guilt, now this is a small guilt, but if I hurt somebody financially or somebody in other ways, and that's because of my desire, that's because of my thing, that is the guilt going to remain with me all the time, long time, and that's going to prevent me from acting nicely, acting further. So that is the self condemnation.
Sometimes Anilbhai, guilt is not good either, right?
That's same thing.
If you feel something happened, because of me something happened. If you keep on feel guilty like that, that is also not good, right?
Right, exactly. That self condemnation સ્વામીજી નો શબ્દ છે, મેં એને guilt માં equivalent કર્યો છે, એટલે બંને વસ્તુ સરખી છે. self condemnation comes from our inside guilt, અને સ્વામીજી કહે છે કે આ જ દાખલો કે તમને પછીથી ખ્યાલ આવે કે આ ખોટું કામ થઈ ગયું છે, પણ તો પછી શું થયું આમાં કે તમે આ મંત્ર બોલો છો તો કે એમાં તમે ડિસ્ટન્સ ક્રિએટ કરો છો. એમ કહો છો કે મેં નથી કર્યું, મારી ડિઝાયરે કર્યું છે, મેં નથી કર્યું, મારી એંગરે કર્યું છે. So who is the doer here? It is the desire that is doing this thing. It is the anger that is doing this thing. If I can separate that anger, if I can say these things, things would be better. So, but anyway, if you cannot work with guilt, you have to, if pasma koikno guilt hoy, so it will prevent you from progress and growth, your own growth, even normal growth. Spiritual growth karwa bijo ek growth tamaro ban thai jaye, relationship tamara juda thai jaye.
So controlling mind is the thing, right?
Yes. But so this is how you clean your mind, and that's where it comes in. Yeah, the whole chapter is about cleaning yourself, and it's very nice, and this is just a part of it.
અનિલભાઈ, આ તો more or less બધા જ રિલિજનમાં કંઈક ને કંઈક છે ને, like
ક્ષમાપના.
Yeah. પછી એક બીજો એક શબ્દ એમણે, તમે કહ્યું અસ્મિતા, that's where you reminded me of something. There I wrote પ્રતિપક્ષ ભાવના. So the cure of all this thing is other thing that Swamiji says is pratipaksha bhavana. Now this is something needs a little elaboration. Suppose કે હું મારા neighborની બહુ સરસ ગાડી જો, મને મનમાં થઈ જાય કે સાલું હું રહી ગયો, તો પછી પ્રતિપક્ષ ભાવનાથી આ વસ્તુ કેવી રીતે હું દૂર કરી શકું? કેમ કહું કે ભાઈ, I think he's really happy with his car. He's really enjoying that kind of thing. If I, મને જે થોડું દુઃખ થયું એને હું જુદી રિવર્સમાં કન્વર્ટ કરું કે look at that, how happy he is with this new car or with these new things. That is a pratipaksha bhavana. Prati is, reversing the whole thing, pratipaksha. So you reverse the thing. That is how you come out of it. તમે કોઈકનો બીજા બી ઘણા દાખલા, રાજનભાઈ can probably pull up some examples just like that. But that Pratipaksha Bhavana is important in our life. So this way we will be able to get rid of some of these other unclean things like moh છે, રાગ છે, દ્વેષ છે. કોઈના માટે હું ખરાબ ઈચ્છા ધારતો હું તો એમ કહી શકાય કે નહીં નહીં નહીં, it's not, he's happy with it, he's better off with that kind of a thing. So મારો જે રાગ દ્વેષ છે એ આપોઆપ ઓછો થઈ જાય because of the પ્રતિપક્ષ ભાવના. That's another important idea. Yes, thank you for that, reminding me that.
Okay, shall we go forward?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. All right, we already talked about Isa Upanishad. Everything is pervaded by Brahman, Lord, God, whatever you believe it to be. So renunciation is the way to enjoy, and do not covet, do not sort of hanker for someone's wealth. That is the idea of first stanza of Isa Upanishad is. Yeah, right. It just basically comes in the same situation, right? And talks about karma clinging on to you. Every action binds you. Every action leads to reaction, and every reaction is a bondage to the universe, to the world we live in. So do the action in a way that the karma, and the karma means karma's reaction, doesn't cling on to you. That is what the second stanza talks about. So let's move forward and then we'll continue on this same line. આપણે અશોકભાઈ તમારા નીચે રાઈટ હેન્ડ સાઈડ ઉપર વોલ્યુમ નું છે, તમારથી મોટું થાય છે?
વોલ્યુમ તો મારું હાઈ જ છે, પણ ફરીથી ટ્રાય કરું.
I can see something, but when I approach that, it blocks me.
Mine is at 100%.
Oh, it's okay. Well, then that's fine. All right. So we talked about how Gita essentially influenced Gandhiji. Basically, he's talking about importance of Gita. Let's move on. We already talked about it. Karma Yoga and Gita. So some of these stanzas that I picked up are primarily coming from the chapters that deal with Karma Yoga, which is like part of second chapter and most of the third chapter. So later half of the second chapter deals with some of these, and third chapter sort of magnifies it, enlarges, and more or less, reiterate some of the ideas. So first one is sthita prajna idea, treating pleasure and pain, gain and loss, victory and defeat alike. Engage yourself in the duty. By doing your duty, you will not incur sin. And we talked about the sin concept is different than what typical Christianity will teach. But next one, karma phal, which this is what it is. You have control over respective duty only, but not control or claim over the results. So you do not control the result. The result is a combination of your effort, and call it fate if you want to call it a fate. So you have a control of how you do the work, but not necessarily the outcome itself is not something that you can control all the time. The fruits of the work should not be your motive, and you should never be inactive. So essentially it's not talking about just doing for the sake of fruit is not a great idea. But at the same time, not doing is an option, not an option either.
So, okay.
A karma yogi becomes freer from both vice and virtue in this life itself. Therefore, strive for karma yoga. Working to best of one's ability without becoming attached to the fruit of the work is called karma yoga. So essentially, it's defining karma yoga. Doing the work with your best effort, with the best intention, but not being stuck with the outcome as you expect it to be, is essentially karma yoga. So essentially, you should not be motivated by a specific desirable outcome that you want it to be. So do the best you can with the best intention and accept the result as an outcome, as a fruit. That is God's wish. Call it that way if you want to call that. All right, let's move on.
So, રાજનભાઈ, બે વસ્તુ છે અહીંયા. કર્મયોગી એટલે લાઈક ગાંધીજીની લાઈફ જે સાઉથ આફ્રિકાથી પાછા આવ્યા પછીની, that's more like a કર્મયોગી, right? Basically.
Right. Yeah.
That's
I
a
mean,
class.
essentially his whole life is based on karma yoga. So the idea is that the whole world is permeated by the Lord.
No,
So
no, but આવીને તો એને detachment from his kids and his wealth and બધું છોડી
and he
દીધેલું.
had already begun that process even while he was in South Africa. I mean, nobody can be completely detached, but he essentially had abdicated his responsibility, direct responsibility to his family, and let them do whatever happens to them. So essentially, there is a psychoanalyst called Erik Erikson who wrote a book, Gandhi's Truth. Now, this is not part of what we are talking about. It's a psychoanalysis of Mahatma Gandhi. Erik Erikson was a very well-known psychoanalyst. He went to India in 61, 62. He lived in Ahmedabad and moved everywhere and met everyone who had known Mahatma Gandhi personally. I mean, by 61, 62, there were still people who knew Gandhiji when he was alive. So he met almost everyone, all major leaders of the country who knew Mahatma Gandhi. And he wrote a book which basically the title of the book is Militant Non-Violence. So the title of the book, first word is militant. That means aggressive non-violence. So I mean, how he contradictory words he uses in the title. Then the title of the book is Militant Non-Violence, Gandhi's Truth. That is the name of the book. It's like few hundred pages of psychoanalysis of Mahatma Gandhi. But this is again, he never met Mahatma Gandhi. You know?
Correct. Yes,
So he is writing retroactive based on the history, based on the interviews that he performed with all the leaders of India who were alive at that point. And the way he writes is something like this. For him, it was a sublimation of his family to the nation. So essentially, he changed his direction from the family-oriented activity to the nation. So the nation became his family. That is how he writes. So the word uses sublimation. So desires of personal gain, desires of personal me and mine were sublimated to we and us. That is how he analyzes this. So it's a very nice book, but again, it's a lot of psychoanalysis. So, unless you know a great deal of psychiatry, you may not necessarily get the point. But that is the idea. So you're right. He basically sort of, sublimation means urdhvapatan. He just basically changes the direction from one to the other for a higher good. Or swadharma becomes sarvadharma. The sarvadharma becomes more important than my personal gain. That is what it is. All right. Yeah, were you saying something?
No, I was good. The reason I use Gandhiji because we all can understand and relate the word karma yogi by that example. That's all I was.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So, Rajendra Bhai, in Gandhiji's case, his failure of duties towards his family becomes at a low level of, what I'm trying to say is, he failed in his duty towards his family, in short.
Yep.
But whatever he did for the humanity was so big that failure was actually not to be counted to that much. Is that right? Or
yes, it is right. And he actually was tormented all his life. And especially Kasturba and both of them, he himself too, was tormented all his life because his son, the older son, Manilal, became a vagabond, became an alcoholic. He changed from Hinduism to Islam and died a death of alcoholic. He came, Mahatma Gandhi nu jare procession chaltu tu when he was killed, he came to that procession in a drunken state. So he was tormented all his life by what happened to his kid. And actually Kasturba kept on reminding him of his responsibility to his kids. And as a matter of fact, if you remember, there's a story, Harilal was one of the sons.
Right.
Yeah.
He was given scholarship there was a scholarship being offered to go to England from South Africa. And
Yes.
he chose not his son,
Yeah.
but the cousin or his nephew to go. So his son and he never got along with that. And his sons always blamed him for being poor in education, being poor in many other respects, saying that you are the one who deprived us of what we, of something higher up in education. So you are responsible. So Gandhi was all his life tormented by that idea that he somehow did not meet his obligation to his family.
But that is good or what?
Well, so essentially it was a choice between, and there is
Yeah, but
one,
once if you want to go in that direction, then you should not have family.
right. Well, the problem is that
Once you have family, then your responsibility is first there,
You're right.
there too.
You have to do
So how
both
can
the
you
things.
make him a great? That's what I'm just thinking.
Isn't that આપણે
ના, પણ તો પછી
કહેશે ને એવું
સેમ એક્ઝામ્પલ તો આપણે બુદ્ધનો લઈએ તો બુદ્ધ લેફ્ટ હિઝ ફેમિલી and did for જન કલ્યાણ કે આપણે for the humanity cause. તો એને આખી ફેમિલી લાઈફ ડિસ્ટ્રોય કરી. તો in that situation when we are listening all these things, કર્મ ફળ, so બુદ્ધને કર્મફળ મળે because he really deprived Yashodhara from having a married life and the family life. So does he get it even though he reached to the higher level?
well, see, that is the idea of good, common good versus personal good. So essentially you are sacrificing your personal good for common good. So if there is a choice, and I think there is a slide further down which talks about artha and dharma. We'll come to that. But you're right. You can argue both ways. That depriving your family of things that you were your obligation, you essentially did not help the family, and that is your fault. And there was actually a movie, Gandhi and Me.
Right.
So that movie is a basically entire movie was made by Anil Kapoor, Anil Kapoor's production. So the whole
It's a
movie,
beautiful movie.
it's a
Very
very
nice.
good movie. It's a movie between Mahatma Gandhi and his son, Manilal. So the dissection or the how that they basically interacted between each other. So it's a very good movie how Manilal became what he became. Now,
Correct.
how much Mahatma Gandhi's was fault, who knows? There is no way to know. But you are right. You can make a point is that his negligence to his own family contributed to the decline of his son. You can make a point, and that's a valid point.
No, it's a generally તમે કોઈ બી કર્મયોગીને જોશો ને તો they have sacrifices, okay, but their family has to sacrifice, like what
Even larger, yeah. You're right.
Same thing what happened to Mahavir Swami Bhagwan, for example.
Sure.
At age 30 he left his daughter and wife. And people talk about, oh, he left his kingdom, but what about his wife and his daughter?
Right.
I think that is a different way you can look at it. But any karma yogi, and look at Modi right now. What is the classic example?
His wife, yeah, right.
No, what Smita Ben is saying. If you really want that, then don't have a family. And that's what I think Modi chose.
તમને જ્યારે ફેમિલી હોય તે વખતે you are not on that point, maybe. But turning point might come, after you see all this stuff. The turning point will comes after later on. Then he realized, oh, I need to do this first. So that might be the. But તમે એ કરો, પણ at the same time don't neglect completely.
Right.
Your family. That's what I'm just thinking.
People have made a point like that. He did adversely affect his family, no doubt about that.
Okay.
Kasturba really suffered a lot. She didn't have any kind of life,
મેં તમને કહ્યું હતું કે Kasturba, he was in jail in South Africa, and Kasturba was deathly ill. So he writes a letter saying that if that is the wish of God, then I will bear with that. So you can make a point. But this guy was willing to let his wife die. So you can make a point.
Yeah.
So there is no easy answer to this question. And I don't know whether you know the whole story about his issue related to sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so,
mean, yeah.
We
but I
read the
don't think I
book,
want to
right? We
discuss. I
read the
mean,
book.
some point in time we will. But that has a lot of implication, and actually psychoanalysis of Erik Erikson also talks in detail about many of this. How that event led to Gandhi. The way he writes is, what made Mohan to Mahatma? That's how he writes. How Mohan became Mahatma. So he brings up that incident at the age of 17, how his father died and how he was busy with his wife, Kasturba, and how it changed him as a man from that point on. But that's a very long story, so I'm not going to go into that detail. If you
Yeah,
are
yeah.
interested at some point in time, we'll talk about that.
I think in context of Vedanta or Gita, what the karma philosophy which is being right now you are talking and discussing is actually not related to the case of Mahatma Gandhi, in fact.
Right, you're right. I mean,
Actually, it
these
is
things
more of detachment of what you are doing. You have to just keep on doing your stuff, but not get attached to it.
But in
That
one
is
of
what.
the
But Pratap, कर्मयोगी નું જે વાત કરે છે, that is like this, like current example are those are the one that family had to suffer in order to public at large to be benefit.
That means they have not done their duty towards their family.
yeah, there is a
That's what we are talking
neglected,
about.
if not
That's what we are
That's
talking.
what we
Yeah.
think, but I don't know at the larger scale.
Yeah, Dinesh Bhai has joined. Yeah, okay.
isn't there a
No, it
Rajan
large.
bhai,
Smitaben writes the larger scale public at large have benefited, but what about their immediate family? That's
yes,
what I.
That's what I'm just trying to. But
Yeah.
But is
I
a-
guess કે એને જે પણ આ કર્મયોગી થતા હશે એટલે આપણે 3-4 દાખલા આવા જોઈએ છે, right? કે I think certain point comes, then it becomes totally changed, their mind. So that might be make them do that. So
Correct.
but
they
isn't
have
there
to
a isn't there
sacrifice
a Rajan
something. So
bhai?
they might be sacrificing for their sake or their own stuff.
So
Yeah.
isn't there one in one of the Upanishads it says that your first responsibility to your family તમે સંસાર
Yeah.
લઈને બેઠા હોય તો, right?
એમ નથી કહેતા કે તમારી સંસારિક ડ્યુટી કર્યા પછી જ તમે વન પ્રવેશમાં જઈ
Exactly,
શકો.
right.
Yeah,
Well,
said like that.
historically, if you look at it, pravrutti and nivrutti has always been in diametrically opposite point of view. कि भाई, what is the best way to achieve salvation or moksha or nirvana or whatever you want to call it? Typical Upanishads and rishis will talk about sannyas. Shankaracharya will talk about sannyas. Moving away from the world. Vallabhacharya and Vaishnavite school will talk about pravrutti and God realization through bhakti while living in the world we live in. So pravrutti and nivrutti has always been an issue in almost every religion. If you think in terms of, see, Christianity, same thing. Catholicism teaches all the priests have to be celibate, they cannot marry. Protestantism, which came in 14th, 15th century, reversed that process. That all the reverends and all Protestant religion, the priest, or they're called reverend in Protestant, they're all married, they live in the world, they have their own family, and they do all normal stuff like Vallabhacharya's families do in our religion. So I think it's a dilemma between those. Which way is the better way? There is no easy answer.
Right.
Same thing applies to Jainism. Same thing applies to Swami. Buddhism was the same issue. Buddhism primarily, of course, sannyas is a primary way. But most of the religions struggle with this. What is one's obligation to you and your family and to the world that you are, or the moksha, and how do you leave the world? There is no easy answer.
ના પણ આપણે બધા એવી રીતે સમજ્યા છે કે આપણી રિસ્પોન્સિબિલિટી પહેલી પછી તમારે એ રિસ્પોન્સિબિલિટી તમે બહાર નીકળ્યા તો પછી યુ આર nowhere એવી રીતનું આપણે તો એ રીતનું શીખ્યા છે.
You're right.
આપણે બધા સામાન્ય માણસો છીએ એટલે.
But exactly right. That's the point I was making. That is why nobody talks about you and me.
Yeah. But I said we are just ordinary people, so we are
That's
not
why we are
that
talking about
thinking
others
power.
here, right? That's true.
You are so right.
if Gandhiji
All right.
balance his life.
અરે દિનેશભાઈ કશું પૂછતા હતા પણ ક્યાં ગયા?
દિનેશભાઈ કશું
દિનેશભાઈ
બોલતા
ક્યાં
હતા
જતા
ખરા?
રહ્યા?
દિનેશભાઈ, you were saying something?
Yes,
નજીકથી બોલજો જરા.
there are two questions. One is this personal family versus larger family or social. Is there an ego involved in it?
No. He did not listen the question.
Well, I mean, in order for you to function in the larger good, you have to transcend your ego.
No, but it's because of ego. Oh, my family is there, but I want to prove myself that I'm better than somebody. I want to do something. And
Sure.
therefore, that part of ego comes. Is that not a possibility?
Oh, yes, it is a possibility. I mean, as a matter of fact, I mean, I was listening to one of the lectures of Sarvapriyanand just yesterday, and he talks about how we transcend karma yogi. I mean, he's talking about karma yoga. So how one's motivation to do good for the society eventually metamorphoses in, rather than doing the work, aggregating, getting the awards and getting stuff acknowledged from the people becomes more important. So he was talking about how the lower level people who are working in that organization complain is Amara boss chair. He's always interested in getting name recognition, awards from different people, going to all these programs and getting all the recognition. But now he doesn't do any more work. So he was making a point is that Karma Yoga started with the good intention can degenerate into recognition sake only, doing for the sake of recognition only.
So that's one point. Second point I wanted to, and this is, I know it's not, some people may not totally agree, but even Krishna gave up his family life to go do right things for, I mean, he left Gokul, he left all that to do right things and eventually establish Dwarka and Mahabharata war and all that. I mean, because in order for you to do good for others, something has.
Sometimes we're given.
Yeah, you cannot have. આપણે ગુજરાતીમાં કહેવાય છે ને કે એક મ્યાનમાં બે તલવાર ના રહી શકે.
દહીંમાં ને દૂધમાં પગ ના રખાય ને કે શું?
You're right. I mean, so there is it's a double-edged sword. Call it that way. There is a downside of everything you do.
એટલે આઈ થિંક મોટા લોકોએ બધાએ સંસાર પોતાનું એક આપણે શું કે ગીવ અપ કરીને આગળ કામ કર્યું છે એમ.
Right.
એટલે આપણે એવું નથી કરી શકવાના.
RMK got married at a very young age.
આપણે એક પાર્ટી નથી છોડી શકતા તો મોટા કામ ક્યાંથી કરવાના છે?
મને પોતાને I think I'm taking you somewhat different. કે તમારા પાસ્ટ કર્મ તમને અમુક વસ્તુ કરાવે છે, એ સારું ખોટું નો ક્વેશ્ચન જ નથી આવતો, because it is in your fate, it is in your hand to do that way. So all these Gandhiji and whoever we are talking about, maybe it is their karma, past karma, because of that they are doing this thing. પછી ફેમિલીની ડ્યુટી ને એ બધું સેકન્ડરી. Ego also secondary, because why they are the only one doing that? One person, why? Think about it.
Yeah.
One person કરે છે, that means that something more than karma.
More than their past kind of, why Trump is having all these things? Maybe his past karma? To have all these friends.
Many things.
So it's a simple thing. Forget about too many analysis. But bhai tamaru j tame laine આવ્યા છો એ, so it will happen that way. That's my simple understanding.
Ashok bhai, I cannot see you. Like, you can speak up if you want. I mean, I can see you. If I remove myself, then you also go away. So, all right, let's move on. Next slide.
Okay.
ના એટલે મેં કાઢી નાખ્યું આપણે, એટલે પછી અશોકભાઈ બી જતા રહે. All right.
એટલા બધા કર્મયોગી ના થતા અશોકભાઈ જતા રહેવું.
Don't worry, there is no chance.
Okay, so we talked about transcendence in Gita. So this is the stanza. he who shares the wealth generated only after serving the people through the work done as a sacrifice for them is freed from all sins. So the point he's making is that ego needs to be transcended. That is the point he's making, which is what Dinesh Bhai was asking about. At some point in time, you need to go beyond the doership yourself. Okay. So there is I'm sure some of you have studied Maslow's hierarchy, sociology, Maslow's theory. So this is the leadership test, and I'm going to talk about next one, Maslow's hierarchy. A key leadership test, potentially sacrificing lower need for a higher goals, that is opposite of Maslow. Now, what is Maslow? Maslow was a sociologist, and triangles here. And so this is like exactly reversal.